hear us? Well, she seems to have gone off the computer now, though.
I'll check in a second. She might be on the
I
other.
don't know. Maybe you just hang on, Cindy. Can you hear us?
I can, yeah.
Oh, all right, perfect.
Good.
I think it just might be that there's too many and it's across my screen.
Oh, you might be able
Do
to
hand me my tonic water
gallery view.
over there on the counter.
Okay.
Yep, there you go. Cindy's back.
Okay. So you are all set. You're live streaming and recording.
All righty.
All right, the meeting is now opened. I don't even have the time here. Oh, it's
About 7
7:01.
o'clock.
7 o'clock.
Do you want me to go through the agenda, Billy?
Yes, I would, sir.
All right. They just sent it out, so we have the most current agenda. Carol just sent it and Cindy sent it.
Okay.
We're a little bit off today because this is our first time doing this with everybody. All right, so the first order of business on the agenda is correspondence. We have some correspondence that we got from Jimmy, but I think we can take that up under another caption. Do we have any other correspondence, Cindy?
No.
Okay, can you guys hear Cindy saying no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Yes.
good. All right. So we have no other correspondence. Now, did we receive the minutes from the previous two meetings?
No, and they're done. I can forward them to you.
Okay. Why don't we, at this point, put that off for the next meeting then?
Okay.
And so we'll get the minutes, Cindy, from December 8th, 23rd, and January 12th next time? All right,
And I'll forward those to everybody beforehand.
okay. Do you guys hear her
Yes.
over the computer?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. It's through your microphone. We can hear her.
Through my microphone, okay. All righty. Bills. I know, Jimmy, you sent some bills out, right?
Yes, you had two bills, the AT&T phone bill, and there was a bill for marine rescue, about a small portion of the bill that was not covered. And I did check it out against the bills at the town hall, and it was not paid.
All right, can I have a motion to pay the bills?
Do I have a second?
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So I believe Bill, who made the motion? Bill? Yeah, Bill, you're muted.
Do I have a second?
Okay. Did you make the motion though, Bill?
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right. So Mike
Okay.
Folcarelli did say second.
Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor?
All right. Let me do it this way. Mike,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
all in favor.
All right, the motion passes unanimously to pay the bills. The next thing we have on the agenda is to discuss drafting an RFP for development of a strategic plan for maintenance, repair, and improvements to the town beach. I think, are you up on that, Donnie?
Yeah, we're still, we haven't advanced things a lot, but to my way of thinking, me and Mike met a while back and we talked things over. And I think we thought, and forgive me if we already talked about this at the last meeting, but I think we thought that focusing on the town beach would be the best way to start off at this time rather than try to look at the other beaches at the same time. So that's kind of where it is in my mind at the moment. What I think we probably should do is along the lines of what we spoke about before in the summertime when this first came up is, or the whole idea first came up, is we should try to get a project visualized, conceptualized, maybe even like preliminary design, to then have something to talk about, costs, and then figuring out where to try to get the money from. So I think we'd be looking at some kind of talking to the Army Corps and seeing if there's something we can do to mitigate the erosion on the beachhead. Something which we haven't been able to address with CRMC, being that they don't entertain work on our beach below the top of the front of the parking lot. So I think the next step, and I don't know if I'm going beyond the scope of the question, but I think the next step for us is to see if we think that's worthwhile to try to do that for the town beach, and then we could reach out to the Corps and see what they can do for us. It may well be that they may, design the thing for us. Who knows? I guess we need to reach out and ask them.
Don, one of the things,
Weren't we supposed to have had a meeting with them on site to look at that drainage issue, Donnie?
Are you talking CRMC now, Joe?
Yes, I think so.
So they already issued us the permit for the spring maintenance and the 10-year permit for the annual maintenance. And then, and it also includes the elevation of the beach at the entrance, the block wall to assist with the elevation, and a little bit of work in the South Shore Road right away. We've already got approval. We've got the approved permit to do that, and that's going to be submitted to the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank as the municipal resiliency. I mean, we talked about that. We did a preliminary vote last time at the special meeting, and it's on our agenda for tonight. I think later down, and Larry Anderson's going to be, I think, giving us an update and answering questions as well. Looking for a vote tonight from the beach, a specific vote from the Beach Commission tonight to talk about the allocation of Beach Commission funds towards the town's match required for the grant.
so I just wanted to go back to the topic of the RFP. So in the original intent of the RFP was to do a strategic plan for all of the beaches. Obviously, that was a little ambitious, and the South Shore Beach became the subject of the Municipal Resiliency Infrastructure Bank award. So it kind of got rolled up into that. So to answer the question about the IRP for the development of the strategic plan, we haven't really gotten that far on a strategic plan because we've been focusing on getting the municipal resiliency grant up and running. And also Donnie was quite tied up with the CRMC 10-year plan kerfuffle. So we should just put that somewhere in our radar, that it's something that we would like to accomplish. But I think that we are not quite there yet with the discussions that would be involved in what a strategic plan for all of the beaches would be. So it's still on our nice to-do list, but I think Donnie's right that South Shore is really the hungry child that needs to be fed. So I would make a motion that we table discussion of a RFP for developing a strategic plan, table it to an undefined later date.
I would suggest that we forward it to the next meeting, even though as opposed to just an undefined, just so that we can keep tracking it, so it doesn't fall between the cracks. Is that okay, Mike?
Yeah, I could amend that to keep it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah, and if we need to, we can forward it again. Before we vote on that, well, no, let's go ahead and vote on that, but I just want to comment about what Donnie said after. It won't affect the vote.
It hasn't been seconded yet.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so that was Bill Ryan.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Carol?
Mike,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
unanimous.
Okay, so the motion is approved to forward that to the next meeting. Donnie, the question that I have is about what you were just talking about. I know that they approved the CRMC approved our 10-year agreement, and we were going to get back to them on 2 items related to that agreement, right?
That's correct. One is
And-
buffer zone. One was buffer zone. What was the other item, Joe?
The other one was the block wall, doing a cast wall instead of a block wall, I think.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. The other thing was, when I asked about the meeting at the beach, I thought that we were supposed to see them and the highway department there about doing something to help the drainage on the sides of the road.
Well,
Is
I
Out
think,
now?
I think that road drainage was addressed, Joe, in the permit plan that it actually, the scope and extent of it really starts at the entrance at Round Meadow and then down South Shore Road to the beach entrance. So that's kind of all rolled into that approved
Okay.
permit.
All right, and is the discussion about those other 2 items, is that on another agenda item, or is that something that we should talk about now?
I'd like to talk about the buffer zone a little bit, the substitution of the wall, the poured wall for the blocks. Unless people want to talk about it, I think that's pretty straightforward, and we already chatted about that. But I think we should talk about the buffer zone.
All right, now regarding the wall, since that's the easy one, are you going to be replying to them and telling them we want to do it this way instead?
Yeah, so I'll send them some correspondence, thanking them for issuing the permit and identifying that
Hello?
we're going to be putting that forward, the town putting it forward for the grant. And so therefore we needed to get some preliminary construction estimates, just rough to get a ballpark for the grant. And in that process, one of the contractors suggested we might want to make that substitution. So here's how we think that would look. I'll send them a detail of the poured wall and basically ask them if they would entertain the substitution. I think it's going to be a simple yes or no question, I would think.
Okay. And you want to do that separately, Donnie, from the buffer zone issue?
Yeah, I think so. Because the buffer zone is part of well, in my mind, the buffer zone is part of the approved permit, whereas the conditions of the buffer zone that we want to, I guess, ask about or comment on or modify is already spelled out in the permit, how they want it. The block wall substitution, that to me, that's a separate thing that I would rather treat that separately so that they don't have to do all or nothing. They can say yes to one, no to the other, or I think that would be better, even if it's on the
All right.
same day, 2 separate topics.
All right, why don't we get a motion going then to have you reply regarding the block wall issue? And then we can go on to the buffer zone.
Okay,
Clean.
sounds good to me.
I'll second that.
All right, so I will have put the motion out. All in favor, Carol?
Mike,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
unanimous.
All right, so the motion is unanimously approved to have Donnie reply to the CRMC with the substitution of the cast wall for the block wall. All right, Donnie, you want to go on with the buffer zone?
Yeah, so the buffer zone, and I'm not talking about the buffer zone along the entire pond. I'm really talking about the buffer zone from the northeast corner of the parking lot, or the far left corner as you're driving in down at the creek, along the line of the parking lot that runs parallel with the creek out to the beach. I think that section of buffer zone, I think we should be asking CRMC either to modify the location of it to get it out of the parking lot, or to ask CRMC to allow certain activities in that buffer zone that right now they're saying the buffer zone is stay out of it, don't do anything. And I don't think that's realistic. As we talked about last time, that buffer zone along the closer you get to the mouth of the creek, we use it for staging our rescues and patrolling a goose wing. It's an area where the surf camps and the charitable organizations, hold their little events. It's an area where we use for handicap parking. I mean, on and on and on. There's a lot of, there's no vegetation there. It's not like we're asking to go into a vegetated area and start doing things. We've
Right.
been doing things there. I mean, for 50 years.
It's never really been a buffer zone.
Sorry, Joe.
It's never really been a buffer zone. In fact, Jimmy called me after the last meeting because he didn't have a very good connection and didn't hear some of the stuff that we had already discussed on during that meeting about that buffer zone. And Jimmy was pointing out that, Jimmy, in how many years? I mean, that has not been a buffer zone, right? It's not like we're trying to save something that's been there.
If you read there, I think that one of the big things is allowing natural vegetation to come back. There's never been vegetation along there. There was one friggin' plant that was growing in the middle of it. The secondary thing, thinking about they're going to allow you to open up that creek every year. That vegetation is not going to stay if you're going to have to take a piece of heavy machinery over anything that's there. The secondary thing, if you notice when the waves come over, it wipes out that whole western side of the that area there. So nothing is ever going to grow there. And again, if you look at the far side that hasn't really been touched and hasn't been used for parking, there's vegetation about halfway up, but from basically parallel to the goose wing shack down, there's never been any vegetation growing there. So, I mean, it sounds like their whole purpose is to get natural vegetation growing back there, and it's just not going to happen.
Billy, you've been around probably longer than all of us down there. And do you ever recall that being like a vegetated area that should, be a buffer zone?
I never seen any vegetation there. I remember when there wasn't any Phragmite.
Yeah.
So Donnie can correct me, but I call it's always moving. So
Yeah.
how can you set roots and stuff like that?
And that's the exact place where we put all the spoils from the when we open up the creek.
Right.
So,
And the other
Donnie,
thing,
do you think that based on everything that all of us have said, I think we're all of the same mind. Do you think that you have enough to give them a valid response that something that they would find acceptable?
Well, whether they find it acceptable, I can't say, but just to back up and comment on some comments earlier, CRMC has imposed a 50-foot buffer zone off the edge of that creek. For the last 20 or 30 years, we haven't acknowledged it because we basically have kept doing what we've been doing for years and years before that. So, and the only reason I'm saying that is we're saying there's never been a buffer zone there, but CRMC is going to say, well, yes, in the last 3 rounds of 10-year permits, yes. In fact, I think they got the buffer zone, the 50-foot zone, when the commission first got the approval to, when the commission first got the first 10-year permit and the approval every year to grade off the parking lot. I think that was what was made agreed to at that time, although I don't think agreed is the word of choice that I'd use. But So just to clarify, CRMC is going to say, yes, we've had a buffer there for 30 years. So I think we should approach it as, let's be realistic about what that buffer zone is, what its functions and values are. With dredge spoils and all the use and never having vegetation, it's pretty limited. So I think there's a lot of merit in presenting the argument to CRMC. And I talked to Jimmy a month or so ago, and we came up with a lot of talking points, like the handicap parking, like we said, the staging, the emergency access, etc. So I'd be happy to put that. I actually had a drafted letter a draft that I can improve to kind of finish off to get it ready to send.
As Donnie, as an alternative, now that you're saying that it was in there the whole time and we've been basically coasting along and it hasn't been an issue, I'm just throwing this out there, but what if we just don't even address it and Jimmy puts up those things anyway with the rope, and he put, where you put the rope up and take it down? I mean, we've eliminated the camper spots down the very end there, Jimmy, haven't we?
Yeah.
So what if we just have that thing there that we always have and don't even address it and just do what we've been doing?
Well, so in the permit they issued, they have many separate stipulations, basically saying the same thing in many different ways. So they're hot onto the buffer zone issue. The section number D on the first page, that this project must take place in compliance with these revisions, and this is in bold. Permanent buffer zone markers must be installed along the 50-foot buffer at the breachway. The CRMC must be notified when the permanent markers are installed. And that was one of the talking points I had. We never put in permanent markers because we didn't want trip hazards and people getting hurt in an environment that's constantly changing. It really doesn't make sense, but you can see they're very concerned about having markers and they want them permanent. Now, my position is I'm not against permanent markers. We use stone markers and set them to grade so that nobody's going to get hurt. We can just use natural stone. We can pop them in, no big deal. My issue is we want to clarify activities that we can do within that 50-foot buffer zone, or we get CRMC to say, there's a 10-foot buffer zone from the beach all the way back to the northeast corner of the parking lot. Some kind of trade-off. Either permanent markers at 50 feet with allowing activities in the zone, or put the permanent markers on a new narrower buffer zone.
But
Yeah, I think now that you're mentioning that, Donnie, I think that they had they even mentioned, I don't have that in front of me right now, but had they even mentioned like putting 4x4s in?
Well, that's what they call permanent. On a residential property, when CRMC gives a permit and there's a buffer zone, they make you put in 4x4 pressure treated posts sunk in the ground, painted white, sticking up 3.5 feet that say CRMC buffer zone on them. We're not going to do that down there. That makes absolutely no sense for that area. It's going to be a hassle and a liability to the town to put markers above grade down there.
The reason that I mentioned that in that way, Donnie, was I didn't, you were saying that it was in the permit for all those years, but it wasn't as specific as it is now, right?
That's correct. In fact,
Okay.
I don't even think they ever used the word permanent. In fact, in the older permits, I saw temporary, which were during the beach grading process, they wanted temporary markers. And I don't think we ever set them there anyways, because we just staked out where we were grading the parking lot. But
Well, there really is no such thing as permanent because, like you said, when the waves come up over the beach and everything, it's just going to disappear anyway.
right. So
All right, I think that you have enough ammo to go back to them, but in a way that's going to be receptive to them, hopefully to agree with it.
mhm.
And you can include that we've eliminated the camping spots from that area, and we'll do what we do with the ropes and the stanchions and so
Yeah.
forth, but it's really not possible to put permanent markers in there because it's an ever-changing landscape.
Yeah, and I think we want to agree that the buffer zone won't be for parking cars for beachgoers or for campers, but it would be for the handicap spot, the emergency access and staging area for goose swing,
Yeah.
and the other activities that occur down there.
Yeah, maybe we can make it sound like we're actually complying with them, but we can't put permanent markers because of the nature of the ground there and so forth. And we'll just do it with the stanchions, like Jimmy said, and we'll still park the handicapped people there.
That's correct. Now, what's interesting is the buffer zone marker issue kind of circles us back to that memorial monument we're in the process of putting up for Chester Wilkie.
Yeah.
Perhaps one of these permanent buffer zone markers down at the end of the beach would be that specific monument. I wouldn't say put it right at the beachhead, but bring it back maybe to where the parking lot and the creek become one. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, in the corner.
It'd be far enough back from the ocean. It'd be out of harm's way. It wouldn't be disturbed when we breach the creek. It'd be an area where people will appreciate it because they'll be walking through that area and hopefully stop to look at it. So that might be also another good talking point to them, is that we've been wanting to put at least one permanent marker down there, and we're getting close to being in position to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how the commission feels on that one.
All right. Mike, did you have something that you wanted to say about this?
First of all, I think that putting the Chester Monument as one of the permanent markers is a great idea. I was kind of agreeing with you, Joe, about the fact that it's been in the, for the past 30 years, it's been in the, has been part of the language of our renewal. And I just want to make sure that we don't do anything inflammatory with the CRMC.
Yeah, I didn't want to open a can of worms, is which I was kind of saying, but the way Donnie said it's been so specifically addressed, we kind of have to say something, right?
So, so if we, kind of make the language that, we're installing a permanent marker, and that's the Chester thing, and just make it singular, rather than, I really don't want to go through the litany of what we use the beach for and why the buffer zone shouldn't apply to us, because I know that that's just, in our experience with CRMC in the last year, that's
my worry too.
Result in another letter to us saying, well, no, you can't do that. So I would try to address it as if we were complying with CRMC to the best of our ability, knowing that in the last 30 years, we have been subjected to this buffer zone, but we have been responsible about doing what we do. So if we can find a way to
word it,
acknowledge that we have understood what they're asking, and that's it.
Well, and if they come back with something, we can always say that we put the permanent marker, back away from the ocean there, towards the pond, because that area is a little bit more stable. But to put a row of them in, going from that back corner down to the ocean, the area is not stable anyway.
Well, why don't we ask them where Jim puts that temporary thing up there in the summertime, because we know that those permanent markers aren't going to stay. Is that sufficient enough?
Yeah, if we say we're going to put one permanent on the corner and then the temporary markers to mark that off.
See, I don't want to really ask them. I don't really want to ask them for permission to do anything, because they're going to deny it. So I just would like to say that we're putting we are marking off the buffer zone. And we have a permanent marker, because if we put, Junior's memorial thing, then we have done a permanent marker, and then we're marking off the rest of it. But I really, from what we've experienced in the last year with CRMC, I don't want to ask them permission for anything, because we know where that's going to end up. And I really don't want to tell them anything that's contradictory to what we're telling, what they're telling us, because they're going to fight that too. So, I don't know really what I'm saying, but I just don't want to go. I don't want to go that route where we're like saying all the reasons why the permanent buffer zone doesn't work for us. I think we just do what we've always done, and like maybe the next 10 years we'll go around with this.
I think there's a lot of merit in your position, Mike. I think that my own thought is, I think it's a better way to go to ask them, or even if we phrase it in a way that isn't asking, talk about activities that we think and we have been doing in the buffer zone that should continue, rather than say we don't want a buffer zone, or we want to change the size of the buffer zone, even though that kind of makes more sense. But the thing with the permit now, they're usually in a CRMC permit, they mention the buffer zone once. On every page of this 6-page permit, every other paragraph says the same thing about the buffer zone in a different way. So you can believe that they're really hot on the buffer zone. Prior to initiating any work on site, these permanent markers need to be put in place. And that's obviously so that anybody coming down there at any point during the beach season can instantly know where the buffer zone is, and then view as to whether there's any activity in the buffer zone or not. So I think us putting our head in the sand and trying to ignore the buffer zone or play it down or satiate them, I don't really think that's going to work. I think we need to have a conversation with them from a realistic standpoint about certain activities that should be allowed in a certain portion of the buffer zone. And I don't, that's my preference as to how to attack it. I don't know, I can't think of.
No.
What if we, Donnie, what if we put in the corner, the memorial, as a permanent thing? And what if we just do throw some 4x4s in there, and Jimmy uses those with his rope instead of the stanchions? And if the waves come and take them away, they take them away. But at least we can say that we did it prior to doing from the way they're wording it, before we can fix the beach for the summer. It sounds like those permanent markers have to be in place. So what if we do that? Just throw those things in widely spaced apart, and say that's the buffer zone. Are they going to be down there every day policing it to see if the handicapped people park there?
Well, I think you're going to find that there are local people down here that would be doing that on a daily basis during the season. And having those permanent markers would certainly make it very easy, clear. I mean, they'll show up in pictures, right? Here's what happened on Saturday. You know what I mean? That's what I envision happening. That's why I'd rather take the buffer zone on point blank with them. We've got 3 or 4 months to have that conversation. Otherwise we might as well just say, okay, let's just put up a 2-foot high fence at 50 feet from the creek and never go over the fence and stay the hell out of there. I don't think that's realistic for the way we operate the beach. And I don't think it's realistic from any kind of standpoint, even an environmental one. That area, like we said, it gets dredge spoils. It's never had vegetation. This isn't a vegetated creek bank that the vegetation was stripped out and now they want it to be restored. This is a gravel creek bank that's never had vegetation. It's definitely a different situation. They're probably not going to want to you know, easily agree with us on that, but the argument has a lot of merit. So my thought is we just approach it with them like, you know, we need to have a conversation here to come up with something that is workable for everybody.
I'm just afraid, what I'm afraid of, Donnie, is that if we ask the question and we contend the buffer zone, if they say no, then what do we do?
Well, we're in no worse shape because with this permit, they're saying put up that 50-foot buffer zone fence and stay the hell out of there. So how are we losing anything by asking them to have a conversation about it? I don't see the downside. I really don't. But, you know.
Yeah, I guess I totally understand what Mike's saying. I think I feel like the CRMC hasn't really been very supportive of us. It seems like we're always bucking them. But I also see what Donnie's saying because they've been so specific about it. They're probably, and I don't know what initiated this, but it seems like they've got a, you know, I don't know, a bone across them or something, you know, about it. So I understand what Donnie's saying about that. We really kind of need to address it.
Yeah. Is there a way in correspondence to acknowledge that to acknowledge the buffer zone and talk about the permanent marker up at the Chester Wilkie permanent marker and without addressing the activities that we feel we need, which would negate them doing a 50-foot buffer zone? I just know that, and I totally agree with you, Donnie, that it's something that needs to be said because we need to say it. But does it need to be said now? Or can we wait until some of the dust has settled from the contention of the 10-year permit and all of that? And, you know, it's like, I just don't want to be like, okay, there's the little Compton beach again, trying to muscle us around. And because you know that they're going to come back and say, all right, you know, whatever. I'm just apprehensive about if there's a way to just acknowledge that we have the buffer zone or without enumerating the reasons why the buffer zone doesn't work for us, because they'll tell you.
Mike, I think there's a couple of lines and stuff like that in their permit and stuff like that that worry me. The first thing being that they said this buffer zone needs to be put in place before any sort of grading takes place. The second little bit that worries me a lot, this line, as required by the CRMC Ascent, no alterations of the buffer zone are allowed, including grading, mowing, pruning, thinning, mulching, landscaping, or any other activity not specifically approved by the stipulations of this assessment. I think this is things we need to address sooner than later, because again, you're not going to be able to do anything down there, and they're basically saying this should be roped off and not touched.
Which then that undermines the town's adverse possession of that area. If we stop using the area, we stop our adverse possession claim and history kind of goes away. So it's the kind of there's a lot of aspects to this if you think about it from the different perspectives. One associated thing is CRMC told us that if we want to get a permit to breach the creek, we're going to have to file for it and get TNC to sign off on the permit, which runs contrary to the basic position the commission has had from the start. So I think we got to be careful about just walking away from that area, because it might have long-term implications. I mean, it's you keep chipping away at the iceberg, and you know, after a while, there's no more ice. And I think that's the perspective we're faced with is CRMC. It appears, in my opinion, CRMC and TNC are constantly trying to find ways to push us back to the west. And
so you're more worried about TNC than you are about CRMC.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two are.
You're worried
joint-
about, you're worried about tattletales.
Yeah,
Are we
well,
thinking,
okay.
are we
Yeah.
thinking that they're in cahoots with each other, Donnie?
Oh, yeah.
That there's an objective here, that they're trying to
Yeah,
take that land away from us?
of course. Of course they
Excuse
are.
me, you're not gonna keep the public out of there. So if you put posts up there, like they said, 4x4s, do what they say, people are gonna sit there, people are gonna lean their bikes against it. It's still gonna be a public access, and there's nothing that they can do about that. And we can't police it because we're not the police. So, for me, is to put the temporary 4x4s up, or put no ropes up. There's the boundary. We can't stop the public. We're not the police. And end it at that, and then eventually the post will go away. And because in the last permit, that wasn't mentioned when I was on the board.
No, it's never,
It's never been mentioned.
when
this
they've
is-
said markers, it's only been temporary, which is a
Right.
wooden stake while we're doing the parking lot. And I'm dead against putting up 4x4 posts that people are gonna get hurt, and it's a bad idea. I think we should tell them, we'll put in stone markers and we'll put them in flush or an inch above
Yeah.
the grade. We don't want people getting hurt down there. That's just a bad idea.
I like that idea.
I like the
Oh, wait a
idea,
minute,
but I
wait a
just
minute.
don't know that they're gonna go for it, you know?
Carol wants to say something.
I'm just wondering, has anyone ever reached out to Donald Gomez, who's on CRMC council? I mean,
I did during the last go-around, Carol, and that's kind of what got us out of the point where we couldn't do anything at the beginning of the year last year.
Yeah, and I reached out to Mike Hudner, who's also on the CRMC council. So we have, you know.
well, I just think we have little Compton assets there, and
Right.
Right. And I reached out to Don with the last round of the CRMC, and right after that was when we got the permit issue. So I got to believe that there are things happening there by Don and Mike.
well, you might want to reach out to them again, just saying that you have a problem with this buffer zone, stating your reasons to them, and, you know, maybe they can help you change minds.
So we don't have a
That's a good
problem.
idea.
We don't have a problem with the buffer zone. We have a problem with how the buffer zone will be used.
Correct.
They don't want it to be used at all.
Right.
Right.
So we don't have a problem with the buffer zone. They can buffer zone all they want. We just have a problem about how that would work policing it.
I don't think that if we offer to put in some stones that are flush to grade, that's gonna meet their requirement of
No, but
you know, marking off the buffer zone. I think that if we put the 4x4s in, they're widely spaced anyway. People can park between them or do, you know, whatever. If Jimmy puts his handicap park in there, if they park between the posts, you know, we've marked it.
I would be afraid that you're going to get fined.
I think that's a bad.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah. That's a bad idea.
been hanging out with the lawyers too long.
Because we're basically what we're doing is we're saying, you know, highlighting the area, and then we're going to be in it. So it's really, you know, and maybe that's the intent of all this, is to, and it probably is, to clearly mark the buffer zone. So it'll be very clear if its terms are being adhered to or not. That's why I think I think we should approach this from, can we modify the buffer zone either in the width and location, or modify the allowed activities in a certain portion of the buffer zone to be more in line. I in no way am going to be convinced that installing any kind of posts above grade down there is a good idea regarding the safety of all the beachgoers.
I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea, but just to appease them, and eventually they're not going to stay there. And I think you're right. Maybe do markers in the ground once you ask for footage backwards, and we just use that temporary roping. You set them on the markers, and people are going to go over there. You're not going to stop people from even parking in there after 5.
But in other words, we don't want our gator in there. We don't want handicap parking.
We
don't
need
want
that gator in there because in case of emergency, every
Well-
emergency equipment has the right to go in there and they have no jurisdiction over that because it's the safety of the public.
Well,
I
so
don't
they,
care what they say.
well, that's a great point. That's part of the point we should be making is that
Right.
look, certain things that are happening and have to happen in this area. So you guys saying we can't do anything in it is not realistic. We need to have a conversation.
Right.
Donnie, what if, I don't know Mike Hudner, but Mike does. And I do know Don. What if you have a maybe like a conversation with Mike Focarelli and Hudner, and then we can also have a conversation with you and me and Don Gomes and see if we can get suggestions from them. You know, like Carol said, try to get them on our side and maybe they can suggest a way to address that, you know?
Well, one of the questions I have is, so is the buffer zone, is the size of the buffer zone different in this permit than it has been in the past?
Yes.
No,
It's
it's
not?
still a 50-foot off the bank of the creek.
So the only difference between this permit and what they're requesting or what they're telling us we have to do to comply is the permanent markers. And is that the only difference?
No,
they're
it's
restricting.
permanent markers and no activity at all in that zone to encourage vegetation.
And that's different. That is different from the last two permits.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they're enforcing it now, Mike, I think. You know, it was there, but now they're putting their foot down and saying, you really got to do this.
Right.
So
Well, does that make sense to have those conversations with those assets from
Yes.
Little Compton?
Yes.
I think it does. I make a suggestion for the next meeting. Before the next meeting, I'll draft up a letter, just a draft for the commission to review at the next meeting, and I'll try to put all these ideas on paper. We can kick it around, and then we could then have something to show to Don Gomez.
Oh, yeah.
Mike.
That's a good idea.
We'll all be on the same page.
All right.
And back and forth.
No, I think
Yeah, that's a good idea. Then once you got that draft, I can email it to Don and have a conversation with him and get suggestions from him on the draft, you know?
No, I think that's a good idea, Donnie. And I think that the content of what you're saying is, I agree with everything. I just would like to find a way to say it that doesn't contradict CRMC so that they don't, so that we don't get in a,
Suggestion is maybe why don't you ask the two of them to take a ride down with you to physically see where they're talking about.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great
Talking
idea.
about doing is not practical.
Right. So let's, Donnie, if you do the letter, and show it to us, and then we can approach Don Gomes and Mike Hudner and maybe take them down there at the same time and have that conversation. Maybe they can intervene for us.
Yeah, face-to-face is always better.
Do you agree with that, Donnie?
Yeah, I definitely do. As a related step, we're going to be having conversations with CRMC about the Tunapus breaching permit that we're going to be filing for. And that's all kind of the same zone, the same topic.
Right.
So there's a lot of merit in getting this going now before the spring when we start to do the beach and we're scrambling around.
Right.
We should address it and deal with it.
All right, if you have that draft for us for the next meeting, Donnie, I think we can go over it and then go to the Mike and Don deal.
Yep. When is the next meeting? Do we know that?
It is
February 16th.
February 16th. Okay.
There's one other little line in here that makes me a little bit nervous. The intent of these markers is to provide permanent reference points on site, which are clear to present and future property owners.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
I know. I thought that was weird too.
Kind of
That's generic. That's generic language because you're a private property owner. You get a CRMC permit. They make you put up the buffer markers. you sell the property, the next owner knows there are buffer markers and where it is. That's their intent of that. But yeah, they basically threw everything in, probably from every permit they ever issued, talking about buffer markers. They put it all in this one. I believe it's.
I honestly hope that's all that it is, and it's not something specific about that transferring the land and, you know. But
Well,
anyway,
that's not going away. When we talk about getting the breach permit, I don't see how we can ask CRMC to sign the breach permit, because that's saying that we have no rights to breach the creek. So you know, any little step we take here is going to be the end of whatever adverse rights, adverse possession. We got to be careful, because one innocuous move can basically pull the rug out from under any future position. So
yeah, you're right. All right, I think that we had enough on that. The next item, and some of this stuff might be overlapped, Donnie, so just let us know if we've already talked about it. But the next item on the agenda is discuss CRMC's response for a separate Ascent permit for breaching First Creek.
yeah, so that's, I guess, the commission, we need to decide, do we want to continue breaching First Creek? If we do, we've got to file a permit like we did the last time. And then we've got to fight that only issue, which is CRMC wants TNC to give us approval to do it. And that's what we got to deal with. But I think we deal with that best by filing the permit and getting that process going, because, you know, if we continue with the dry winter, who knows, we might, in May, we might be needing to breach that creek again. And
What, Jim, Donnie, what ended up happening? And I know it's sort of like a separate item on here, on the agenda here, but it's related to this. Whatever happened with the whole town solicitor thing regarding the filing of that in the land evidence records and all that stuff?
yeah, we haven't, I haven't, the next step was I was going to meet with Tony Texera and Dick Humphrey, and we were going to basically bring Dick up to speed and see what he thought would be a next step, or what his thoughts were. But we got bogged down with the quick deadline to get the stormwater design done and submitted. So that's kind of the next step, but it does go hand in hand with the application to breach the creek. So it's a good time for me to reach out to Tony and meet with Dick and see if we can.
All right, so maybe we can push that forward to the next meeting agenda. And between now and then, Donnie, you'll talk to Tony and Dick.
I'll try.
Okay.
Because Donnie, it's true. I think that while that before we can erase that TNC co-signing the permit, that's where the solicitor and all that comes in, where we really have to get the answer to that before we go back to CRNC and say, no, we're not doing that.
Yep.
Yeah, there's sort of three items on this agenda that seem to be all kind of related. The one that we are just on right now is discuss CRMC's response for a separate Ascent permit for breaching First Creek. The next item is discuss update on addressing TNC's breach permit and management plan. And then a couple down is discuss the meeting with the town solicitor regarding First Creek. So those are all together, and that's what we're talking about, Donnie. That hasn't been completed yet, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So, did we sign last year's TNC management plan?
I don't think
I don't think we did.
I don't think we did. But one thing I would do, and maybe this is for Cindy to do, is that I would request that they present their management plan well in advance to the season, because last year they dropped it on us at the very last minute. And we really, I mean, there was everything in the world going on between Gates and COVID and everything. We really didn't get a chance to look at that and behind the eight ball with that management plan.
I don't think they ever did submit one, Mike.
They
They,
did,
they did.
I've got a
They-
copy here of April 15th, 2020. We were sent a
Yeah.
copy.
Which was, hey, we got this permit from CRMC. There's a maintenance plan we submitted that's part of the permit. We recorded it in the land evidence records. Here's a copy. That's what we got,
yes.
right? And
Yep.
then we
Yeah.
got TNC out of the beach until they requested the permit be rescinded. They
Yep.
agreed they would do it. So we granted them special access because they agreed to do it. And here we are. They haven't done one thing at all. So are we going to be back at the position of locking TNC out until they do something about that?
Well, what about if we reverse roles and we rewrite the entire management agreement and send it to them?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Well, now Joe and Jim would, at the last meeting, I thought you guys were going to start reviewing that and thinking about things along those lines. Was that something we talked about, or?
Yeah, I mean, we took a little bit of a look at it. I got the copy that you had here of it, of the latest one. Really haven't had a chance to talk to Joe further about it, though. No.
But I think that's a good idea, that we should take the management plan and look at it and promote it the way we think it should be.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that we did every year in the past was just make sure that word for word that they weren't trying to sneak something different in there. And we signed off on it on the same exact one.
Right.
What if we start from there, Jimmy, and, make a draft of that, take a look at it and see if we want to change anything. And I don't know if it was Mike that said, us submit it to them.
It was Jimmy that said that.
Right.
Jimmy, okay.
Right,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll get a copy of this to you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And let's try to get that out to them like in March. Early
I
enough.
think that's what we should do also, is set a yearly date where it goes out by this
Yeah.
date,
Well, they
Oh,
kept
yeah.
putting us off all year last year, if you remember. We were trying to get them to come in and talk to us.
Right.
And they kept saying, we said now, and they said no in the fall, and then it never happened.
Right.
Because it's not beneficial to them to address it.
Right.
Right? It's fine. They're letting CRMC do the heavy hitting for
Right.
them. And they're sitting back doing nothing, because why should they do anything? Nobody's making them do anything.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jimmy, if you get that thing drafted and I'll get together with you, you can email it to me, text me, and let me know that you're sending it so I can look for it. And I'll print it out, and you and I can go over it on the phone.
Sounds good.
All right, the next item is consideration of breach elevation work for pertaining to MRP grant application.
And so I think Larry's with us, and apologies, Larry, we probably should have done this first so you didn't have to sit around all night, but
I think he just came in.
Well, he was on the other side. I just didn't move him over.
Oh.
Yeah. So should we just give Larry the floor and let him present it?
Sure, go ahead, Larry.
So can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where we are is that we have to submit our application for this grant this Friday, the 15th. I had shared with Don yesterday the fairly lengthy draft. I think I sent him just a couple of hours ago, a revised one. And so there are a couple of specific things we need to clarify to include in the application that will go in Friday. Bob Mushin, Tony Texera, and I, who are the so-called core team, met today to talk about it, to assign a few final tasks, to tweak some of the numbers. Carol, this is a webinar. I'm talking here. Is there any way that I can share a document, or is that going to work?
Let me look and see whether or not I can promote you to a panelist, and then you should be able to.
I think you have to share your screen, Larry.
Yeah, I promoted him to a panelist, so you should be able to do that now, Larry.
Okay, so if it's okay with you guys, I don't know, it might be easier for me to show you the draft application. It's a long document. I don't want to go through it word by word, but I think if I show you some numbers and things, it will be easier for you to follow what I need to talk to you about. So I'm going to go ahead and share the draft application and show you a couple of key pages so you'll know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and try that. Here we go.
Okay,
Host disabled screen sharing.
Nope, I just enabled it.
Okay, let me try again then. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go to here. Let me see. Okay, so
There you go. We've got it. We're
There we
good.
go.
so
I had it.
this is a, can you see that?
Yep.
Yes.
No, mine went off for some reason. It showed for half a second.
Try your screen, how your view is.
Hmm. How would I do that, Carol?
Upper right-hand corner, there should be options for gallery view or speaker view.
I'm not even seeing the Zoom anymore.
Oh,
Oh, wait a minute. I got it. I'm back.
Okay, so there's a title page. We're applying for this municipal resilience grant, action grant, so-called. The town council authorized our core team to submit this application. We'll do it Friday. I'm just this is the title of it. There are 3 elements of the proposal. They all are related in one way or other to what we're calling stormwater management, South Shore Beach parking lot, Townway and John Dyer Road. So what I'm going to show you is the nature of the request. I've edited this a little bit, Don, from the last thing you've seen. There are 3 figures we have to keep in mind. That is, the total project cost is $205,000. That's a number we've got put together from all 3 projects. The actual grant request will be $164,000 if we stick with our existing numbers. And we have to come up with a 25% match of the grant request, not the total cost. But if we put together the grant request and the town share, will cover the project cost. So I'm going to go to the next page. So keep those figures in mind: the total project cost, the grant request, and the match, which is 25% of the grant request, not of the total project cost. So here are the working numbers we have. I'm going to go to the next page. So the 3 elements are.
So excuse me, Larry.
Yep.
Excuse me. So going back to those numbers, if the town's contribution is 25% of the grant request and not of the project cost,
right, then
there's going to be a differential between the project cost and the funds available from either the grant or the town, right?
No. I have the same. I've gone through this the same. I asked them yesterday. I sent an email on that point. We're going to ask for the grant, and then our match is 25% of that. If you add our match to their grant, that's how we get to the total project cost.
Okay.
Okay. So there is no differential then.
Yeah. So this is the amount we're asking for. We kick in 25% of that, and we cover the cost of all the projects. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay. So now I'm going to go to the how that breaks down, and these are numbers that could change, and you may tell me to change them. But here are the numbers we're working with for the total project cost. We've got a placeholder number here of $100,000 for your project. Now, Don's given us various numbers. You have some issues that are still unresolved, whether you're going to have a block wall or a poured wall, which would affect the cost. As I understood it, we're basically including in here the actual other maintenance you're doing on the parking lot, and we're giving ourselves some room. So Of that $205,000 for the total project cost, the beach commission share is in here at 100,000. And the other two projects, the Townway and the John Dyer, are respectively 88,800 and 16,200. So that adds up to the 205
Yeah.
up on the top. So what we're looking for from you is and I've worked on some wording of a possible motion, is a commit, because you're independent from the town council. We can't tell you how to spend your money, but you have appropriated funds in various accounts at present in the current fiscal year. Tony looks at your operating account, a separate appropriation for parking lot maintenance, and he says you have a catastrophe account. So you've got three different accounts as a pool. And we're looking at a request for you to vote to authorize up to 25% of the, not this 100,000, but the grant request, 25% of the grant request. So basically 25% of 80,000. We're looking for a commitment from you of basically $20,000 from your existing accounts as the match for this portion of the application, because we have to identify the matches. From the town side, some of it can be in kind that on these other projects, some of it will probably come from the town's capital fund. So it'll be about 20,000 from the beach commission's accounts and 21,000 from the town's accounts, either in kind or capital accounts. So we have to document and show that we've got approval for the town match. So the essential thing I'm looking for tonight from you, at the last meeting, you took a vote to participate in principle in this program. What would be helpful and sort of necessary tonight is to get a grant from you to authorize spending from your existing appropriated funds, a matching share, not the way I put it. I'll read what I'm proposing. The Beach Commission authorizes a matching grant payment from appropriated Beach Commission funds in an amount not to exceed 25% of the commission share of the Municipal Resilience Program grant request. So I know that I'm making a simple thing sort of complicated, but that's the practical thing that we're asking you to do tonight, is to take that kind of vote. As I look at it,
Larry,
go ahead.
Larry, before we vote on that, I would just like to ask Jimmy a question, because Jimmy's got a proposed budget that he drafted. Jimmy, would that require any changes to that proposed budget that you drafted?
Yeah, again, that whole budget that I sent you guys, Tony asked me to get him something to start putting before the budget committees and stuff like that. None of this has been approved or authorized yet. And again, the wording, I highlighted a lot of things that I just threw in. We've got a beach parking lot upgrade line article that I put 50,000 down there. But again, this is all here to talk about later on about how to reword this and how you
Okay. So we're okay to vote on this then.
Yeah.
That being the case, I'll make the motion that we go ahead and approve that.
Can I, Don Maderas, can I ask Larry a question? Larry, what are the in-kind contributions the town will make on the projects? Is that like the highway department will do work in the road?
Yeah. So Bill Moore has, to this point, has put together a proposal that's a lot less detailed, and these other projects actually have to involve getting the engineering done and some design work. Your project, that's all done. So those projects, those 88,000 and the 16,000 involve getting some engineering done, and then the work done for those would involve a town's contribution of labor, machine, backhoe, trucks, and perhaps some material. So we don't know those numbers yet. It's likely to be a combination of in-kind labor and, time and machines, possibly some material. That's how Bill's looked at it, but we don't have the level of detail for those projects that you have for your plan.
Is that going to adversely affect our portion of it, Larry?
So the way we're looking at it is that it shouldn't affect it shouldn't affect you at all, because you have specific appropriated funds in. I'm jumping around here. I understand that this project will get done this spring, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Our project, yes.
Yeah. So you have appropriated funds in this fiscal year that were appropriated at last year's town meeting. So you have the money to do this now if you haven't spent it.
Right. What I was saying was, is it going to adversely affect the entire grant because of the fact that they haven't done the engineering work that we've done?
No, we're engineering is part of the budget we're presenting to them for their portion of the grant. So
Okay.
you're not competing. In fact, I'm quite confident about your proposal because you have done the engineering, you've got the CRMC approval already, which will be required for the town way. We're going to have to get CRMC approval for that, which we don't have. And you have appropriated funds, which you've already allocated to some of this work anyway. So this is not competing. You're not competing with the other ones at all. You're ready to go. And
Yeah, no, I didn't think that we were competing with them, but I thought that if it was all packaged together, I just wanted to make sure that, the success for us to get the grant wasn't going to be adversely impacted by them. But I think you've answered that.
we had a good conversation with Sean O'Rourke and Kim, whose last name I can never remember, his associate at the Infrastructure Bank earlier this week. We went through these projects with them. It's a fairly, this program is a fairly small program. This Sean O'Rourke runs it. They've got a lot of discretion. They urged us to put the proposal together in this way.
Okay.
Because the question we had is whether we had to submit 3 separate grants.
Right.
3 separate proposals, and they said, no, they all have in common stormwater management, make them one. So in fact, if they agree to this, I'm going to read the RFP for this. If they agree to it in principle and a number, we still have to, and it won't be you signing, it would be Tony Texera or Bob Mushin. We then have to enter into a final agreement, which is subject to a negotiation of an approved scope of services. So once this is agreed to, there may be some moving parts when we get to the agreement. Some of these numbers may change and so forth, but they encouraged us to present it this way. So there's no real, and the number we're proposing, the project cost of $200,000, a grant proposal of less than $200,000, they encourage us to go ahead in this. We're coming in actually a little less than they suggested. So we're trying to make it easy for them to say yes with the pool of money they have. And it's not a big it's not really a big bureaucracy that's involved in this. It's 1 or 2 people at Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank who are going to make the final decision. So
well, it sounds like you're pretty optimistic about it, Larry. Would it be possible for you to send a copy of this document to the commission, please?
I forwarded, so Larry, as he said, he sent an updated one this afternoon. I did forward that to the commission members.
Oh.
It was probably only an hour before the meeting, but that's when I got it and when I got sent it.
So,
Question for Larry.
Yep.
Larry, I thought that the grant did not fund engineering costs. I thought it was like kind of shovel ready
no,
type thing.
that's it. It doesn't fund strategic planning type exercises.
Okay.
But engineering and design are clearly possible. And one of the reasons they're dealing with us, and one of the things we've been clear about with them from the get-go, is that unlike a lot of larger towns, we have limited, in-house staff capacity. We don't have a town planner. We don't have a town engineer. We have a part-time public works person. So they know that. And so I think they have a pretty clear picture of how we differ from some of these bigger towns that have done these grants, which have staff who can put together estimates, do some of the engineering and so forth. We don't. So they're trying to help us out here, I think.
Well, I think that I'd like to acknowledge that we're very, very lucky that we have a Donnie Maderas on our commission,
Right. Well,
because otherwise we wouldn't have that capability either.
right. Well, that's why we're shovel ready. That's why this one's ready to go. So
Yep.
One question I had is on, thinking about the budget of the beach commission, is part of that, can part of that be in-kind engineering and surveying services?
Well, Don, we had talked about that before, and I put that question to him directly. And he laughed a little bit when I tried that out on him. And he discouraged us from doing that at this time, to be honest.
Okay.
Yep. But we tried it out, and he gave me credit. He said, "Good try, Larry."
Ask him if he'll come down in the spring and hold the stick for me when we're laying out the parking lot and the retaining walls and whatnot.
So I tried, but they weren't going to buy it this time around. So
I'll help you out, Donnie.
I guess Joe made a motion on that, or
Yes.
Yep. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded to go approve this application that Larry's presented. And Carol, you want to do the roll call?
Sure. Joe,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
unanimous.
Okay. So we have a motion approved to unanimously to let Larry go forward with the approval of the beach commission.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you.
There are two other things there are two other just paperwork items I need from you before Friday. And I know you didn't adopt your last minutes, but I need a record of the motions, the motion you took at your last meeting to approve participation, and the language of the motion you approved tonight, which I read to you. I don't know how that's recorded, but before the end of the week, at least by Thursday, it would be helpful for me to have in hand the language.
Cindy, do you think you could get those minutes put together and sent out?
Could Larry, would they accept draft minutes on the idea that we're not going to have another meeting to approve the minutes?
Well, I tell you what, I think you could do it like this. I'm just going to talk here. If either the chair or the secretary of the commission just produce a document with the minutes with the motion from the December 23rd meeting and the motion tonight, and just say, I attest that this is a true record of the motion passed by the beach commission on those nights. We don't even need the whole minutes. We just need the motions.
Okay.
We don't need the minutes approved, you're saying. We just need
Just need the actual motion. So I think Cindy said that she'd be able to do that.
That would be great. And she can send it to Carol or to Don or both, and then they can forward it.
Larry, would you send that wording to me and I'll make sure that Cindy gets it?
Okay, I'll send that right to you after I'm done here.
Okay, and then that way her wording is exact.
Yeah. And so unless you have other questions, those are the things I need. And then by Friday, we'll have submitted it, and they tell us they'll let us know by February 22nd. They move this one pretty fast, so we'll know. And I remain pretty confident.
That's great.
Thanks, Larry.
Larry, that's a big undertaking. And I haven't read through it word by word, but I'm sure you've done a very meticulous job, and we appreciate it.
Well, it's it's what I can do. I'll be glad when it's done.
Good.
Okay.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, the remaining items that we have on the agenda are the proposal that, and by the way, Jimmy, proposed has an O, not an E. On both of your documents, the proposed budget and the proposed operational guidelines. It's PRO. So do you want to walk us through this guidelines thing, Jimmy? I know there's one item on there that I'm against, and I spoke to you on that on the phone, but I'm just one person.
Okay, again, basically the purpose of this and the proposed budget are to give you guys things to talk about before our next meeting, and go over and think about. First proposal, basically, stated in the guidelines for operation of Little Compton Beaches 2021. In the event that we are still under the governor's mandated COVID-19 protocols, Little Compton Beaches will operate under the protocols established in the summer 2020. I've attached a copy of the 2020 protocols to the back of this document. The 2020 protocols will be adjusted to conform with any adjustments the governor, beach commission, police, or fire chiefs make in 2021. Some proposed changes to keep in the event that for 2021 season, even when and if the COVID-21 protocols are dropped, we'd like to stay with the hours that we've established last year, 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. town residents and sticker holders only, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. opened up the public. And then 4 p.m. to 11 town residents and sticker holders only.
Yeah, I'm good with all those things.
Okay.
I think
Next
we
thing is
talked about that
maintain
before.
the nighttime security staff. To be able to do these hours, we will have to maintain the nighttime security staff. It's going to add about 17 to 18,000 to the budget for payroll. Next thing is this is Joe's sore subject down here. Stickers. We have never charged residents for beach stickers in the past, but it may now be time to start to help offset some of the costs of nighttime security and other new expenses that we're incurring. We're the only town in New England that has guarded surf beaches that does not charge residents for stickers. Basically throwing it out there, a fee of $10 could bring in $15,000, which would help cover the cost of the nighttime security. We got quite a bit of people saying they'd be willing to pay more or stuff like that last year to keep it town only type things at night. The other thing is I'd like to just have discussions about our policies with stickers also. If we decide to change to residents only, stop the 2 stickers per household, allow taxpayers to purchase as many stickers as they want for vehicles owned by the taxpayer. Again, we will avoid things like your daughter who lives in Arkansas that doesn't qualify for a sticker. I also would like to stop the policy of gaining access to the beach without a sticker, allowing residents to drive around the lot when the lot is closed. That also I would like to stop. That's something that even the police chief has said is not a safe thing to do that we have done in the past.
Jimmy, when you say that they drive around the lot, you mean looking for a spot?
Basically, yes. It's been a policy in the past that we allow town residents to drive around the lot when the lot's closed. It's just,
I think that doesn't require anything from us. If you find that that's not conducive to a proper operation, that's up to you, and you can stop that.
Okay. The other thing is, do we want to limit the non-taxpayer stickers? Last year we sold about 350 stickers. Do we want to keep it at that? Do we want to go to 500? Or just let it go with whatever it's gonna go to.
I think that last year, Jimmy, we sold stickers and notified the people that it was going to be subject to first come, first serve in terms of the COVID restrictions and so forth. And everybody bought them anyway.
Yeah.
My only thing about any
I
of this,
think
I agree with you on every single item that you've discussed and we've discussed previously. The only thing that I would hate to see happen is to start charging for stickers. And I understand that you say that that happens everywhere else and everything, but we had an experience this last year where we had a large group of people giving us a lot of grief and so forth. And I think that we want to keep the town residents on our side. And the fact that, you know, a lot of people complain about, you know, the Massachusetts people and so forth being at the beach, but our argument always is they're paying for our beach. And we can always come back to the people with that. And people acknowledge that. You've got a free beach. It's not everywhere. We also have the lowest tax rate in the state. So it doesn't mean that we have to follow everybody else. I like the idea of the free stickers and to keep it separate and you're not paying for it. I do agree with the other things where you said that people shouldn't come in and just say, oh, here's my driver's license. I don't want a sticker. And, you know, I'm going to go in anyway. No, if you're a town resident, you show your driver's license, then you get a sticker.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
No, I agree with it. And again, we've run into issues with that in the past, with just people coming down, showing any sort of document to get into the beach, stuff like that. It should be required that you have a sticker to get into the beach.
I think,
Again, purpose of this right now is just to put these ideas out there to think about and then maybe vote on them next meeting, you know, stuff like that about what we want to do here. Okay. Gives other people a chance to hear about.
Sorry, Jim, interrupting. So people would expressing their sentiments and whatnot. So I'll throw my 2 cents in. The way I look at the beach is it's a shrinking resource. You've got nature is shrinking it on one side, CRMC shrinking it on 2 sides. For us to be taking money out of that resource and putting it into the town general fund and hoping, you know, we can get some of it back, I think that's short-sighted, and I think that's overtaxing the resource if in the context of we want to have a beach for our grandchildren and their children. I think we need to, I'd like to see the commission take a position and present it to the town and the taxpayers that we can't Mother Nature's tapping it on 1/3, CRMC's tapping it on 2/3. We've got to collect money and we've got to put the money we collect back into the beach to keep it going. You know, otherwise there's too many people drawing off the well and the well's not being replenished. So in terms of the residents paying for stickers, I think they should. My opinion is I don't think that we should make a decision whether residents pay for stickers or not just because they may or may not like it. I think we should make that decision based upon what we have for a resource and what we think the future is going to need or what can we provide for the future to address what we perceive the future to be.
The only thing about that, Donnie, is though that if we're charging on the one end, then on the other end, it's gonna be more money that we're giving back to the town. I'd rather not charge and have the publicity of you've got a free beach for town residents, for taxpayers, and give less money back to the town to compensate for the security and so forth, which has really helped Jimmy out.
Well, I think what Donnie is saying is more extreme than that, Joe, which is that he would like to see the money for stickers.
Okay, I'll put you over here, Cindy.
Or some kind of fund that does not go into the general fund. And in that case, I think we'd have to change the enabling legislation of the Beach Commission for that to be possible, one way or another. But I would be in favor of that if
Yeah.
the money didn't go into the general fund and went specifically for the care and maintenance of that beach and the other beaches. That would be a different story. But I agree that I would not like to see it be charged a fee and have it go into the general fund.
Okay, couple quick things. We have talked with Tony already, and he has agreed that he thinks there should be a separate account set up for the beach. I know Bill, I don't know whether you ever got a chance to talk to him any further on that,
Yes,
but he agrees with it. He thinks that the
Yeah.
beach should have a separate account separate from there. And then we discussed also about instead of, you know, the town saying, oh, we can have this, we determine what we give the town at the end of the season, you know, so that the money does stay with the beach and to maintain beach things. Because
Excuse me, Jimmy. Cindy, Jimmy, 1 second. Cindy, can you hear it over the phone, over my phone?
That I would not like to see.
Cindy, can you hear me now?
I can now.
All right. That's over my phone. Maybe you can get the sound from my computer over the phone.
Okay.
Sorry, Jimmy. Cindy was sending a message that she couldn't hear us.
Okay, and again, I'm going to get to a couple other items. I'm going to try to explain why we're going to need more income coming in, you know, other income streams. I mean, again, I don't want to be the one that's
Okay.
the first one to start charging residents for beach they've never paid for before, but it's a changing world. And $10 is peanuts. I mean, Middletown gets 90 and 130 for their town stickers with no guarantee of getting into the beach. So again, $10 is peanuts. So I'm going to move down to my next item here, campers. Do we want to open the campers when COVID-19 regulations are dropped? As long as the gate is being locked at 11 o'clock, this is something we need to talk with the chiefs about, whether they want to maintain that or not after COVID. If that gate is locked, then campers are out of the question. In the event that we do start opening for campers again, I put out a suggestion there because we've had some issues with out of town residents saying that we'll never be able to get in ever again. We'll have 11 spots at that point if we do campers again, that we do 8 spots go to residents at 9 a.m. on Mondays. Then at 1 a.m. like usual, we'll do 3 spots just for non-residents. By 2 p.m. if those 3 spots have not been taken, we go back to a wait list and offer them to residents.
I think you meant 1 p.m. there, Jimmy, right?
Yeah, 1 p.m. Yep.
Yeah.
Again, this just ideas of things thrown out there when and if these things happen, and if we want to keep campers coming.
Well, again, to voice my own opinion, and Jimmy and I have talked about this, I like the idea of the campers being there on the weekend because it's an additional presence. And in general, obviously, there's been isolated issues with them at times, but that's individuals. If we have issues with them, individuals, then they're going to lose their right to be there. And I think that's already worded in the permits that we issue. But I like the idea of the presence, especially on the weekend where we have people that care about the beach, that are there through the night.
Joe, doesn't that argument go away when we consider if we're having night security? Then that the premise of your argument doesn't really be relevant anymore. If we've got night security down there until the beach closes at 11, then how are the campers helping keep an eye on the beach for us in a meaningful way?
Well, Donnie, that's just one aspect of it that I mentioned, you know, for caring about the beach and so forth. But I think that it's a benefit that we have that is you can't really get anywhere else. I mean, Horse Neck has it, but not where you're like right on the beach like that. And it's a lot more formalized. We have it. It's only for self-contained. We have the tradition of that being there for many, many years. And I personally think it's beneficial for it to continue.
I do agree. I personally like the campers being down there. But there are secondary considerations. As long as that gate is locked at night, we can't do them. And we are going to run into secondary problems because everybody pretty much wants to stick with the residents and sticker holders after 4 p.m. What do we do about all the friends and family that want to come down to these campers afterwards? So these are things to think about, in the future. And,
Well, maybe we restrict that and the friends and family can't come down.
Yep.
You know?
That might be a possibility.
That's something you can't enforce. My
Right.
opinion is that I know tradition is tradition. Again, the parking lot's getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
The world's changing. I hate to be the one to say this, the people that want to camp are going to have to go to a real campground, because I don't think we should be catering to a extremely small percentage of the users when the resource is extremely small, because that becomes a big percentage of resource use by a very small percentage of users.
Yeah.
My
I'm sorry. Is this
my
too loud?
opinion is I would like to see the campers end.
Sorry, babe.
Well, again, like I said, this is nothing I'm really looking for a vote on tonight. And again, we have a lot of other things that are going to create problems and issues here, like the gate alone. We can't have campers down there if the gate's locked.
Yes, I'd like to speak.
Yep.
You make more revenue with cars than you would campers. That's a fact. Because you could put a $20 car there all day long and there's 40 a day. So you got to think of that kind of revenue. I'm not for the campus anymore. With all the years, I remember going down there for years. It was only 4 people. 4 people. There wasn't a problem. And they were out of town people. And I just think it's getting to the point where we can make more money with those spaces with cars and campers. That's a fact.
Well, when we get down to it, we each have a vote. And as I said, that's the way a committee works. If I'm the only one voting one way, that's fine. I'm not going to be mad at everybody.
Right.
Not personally.
Not looking for a vote on these things tonight. So I just want to throw them out there for discussion. The next thing on this list is lot capacity. We've gone under the assumption for years that the capacity of that lot is 250 cars. We determined last year when we were counting cars that it is way more than that. We're probably more
Yes.
like 330 to 340 in that range.
Yeah.
Again, going along here.
That's without campers, though.
That's without. Well, actually, we were not using the camper area at all last summer for parking, with the exception of lifeguards.
And you were still that number at 330 to 350?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
So, I was shocked too, but we had the days where we were allowing 180 cars in, we were just barely to the second lifeguard stand at that point. So there is quite a bit more room. Couple different issues here and stuff like that. Do we want to start counting cars and limiting numbers? Do a physical count on cars coming into the lot? Couple reasons here. Due to sea level rise, high tide, we don't have a beach at South Shore anymore at high tide. This pushes a lot of people down to Goose Wing. TNC has expressed, as they said in one of their meetings previously, that concern over the number of patrons going to Goose Wing, defeating their mission as a nature preserve. Police have also expressed concern on some of these very, very busy days that the parking lot had too many people in it. And again, the secondary problem was allowing the residents to drive around the lot, created issues. Basically throwing out there a possibility that we limit the beach to 250 cars. We use our own judgment on that. If it's not crazy, again, with the lot down there, there's different size of vehicles. If you get a bunch of people coming down with F-350s, it's going to take up a lot more space than the guy that comes down in their Prius. But I think this would help out with the number of people we have in the cars, the safety of the parking, not jamming up the lot quite as badly as we have in the past.
Isn't that also going to cut down a lot on revenue, Jimmy?
Yes and no. It's going to cut down some, but again, this gets back to, charging for stickers and that sort of stuff. I'm a little bit nervous about the just stuffing cars in there all the way to the end.
That's a big reduction of 90 cars.
Yeah. And again, if we can eliminate the allowing residents to drive around the parking lot, that eliminates half of that problem with the full parking lots.
Well, definitely, I think that's up to you to determine that, Jimmy. That's certainly within your purview to not let people in and drive around.
Okay.
However, if you prefer that to be in a motion by the commission, Jim, we can do that too.
Okay, and again, this is one of the things, we're just throwing this out for discussion at this point in time. You know, again, like I said, we're starting to get to the point where we don't have much of a beach on South Shore during high tide. We are getting more and more people going down to Goose Wing, and they have expressed concern about the number of people down there.
Yeah, so TNC, they're always going to express concern, right?
I'm not too worried about TNC.
Well, last spring, they were really happy we put up the gate because that made such a big improvement down there at night. So they're happy for what, a week, and now they have concerns again? I mean,
Yeah. If it was up to TNC, they'd be happy if nobody went to the beach ever. You know, so
I agree with you.
I don't want to really care about making them happy.
All right. Again, I'm not so much worried about making them happy as just making you aware of possible issues and stuff like that. And the fact that,
Good.
you know, we do need to play nice with them because at high tide, they have the beach, you know?
But we have the right of way,
Yeah.
so
And the public's been
play our
using,
cards.
the public's been using that beach for quite a while.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something that can just be ended with the stroke of a pen.
Yeah.
No, that's even federal law, isn't it, Jimmy, about the access to the beach?
Well, the access to the mean high tide, the low tide mark and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And again, when the first year that I was here, I couldn't understand why the Nature Conservancy was asking Little Compton to guard their beach for them. And I did a little bit of research, and the Nature Conservancy had a beach, I think, down in North Carolina, that they had bought and then stopped lifeguarding, had a drowning, and got sued and lost. Because if you've had X amount of years, if you've had guards on a beach, there's a certain public responsibility you have to maintain that public expectation of coming to a beach and having safety there, you know. But again, playing nice with our neighbors and stuff like that, you know, doing things to appease them, you know, it's not, you know, there's some things we can do that are not that hard. And again, without giving away the baby with a carriage type things. So, all right. So we get you guys out of here tonight. I sent you all proposed budget things. Again, Tony was looking for something to help him get going on the stuff with the budget committees. The cover sheet is the sheet that we end up turning into Carol. Basically, the first line of it says, town will appropriate the sum of $224,000 for the fiscal year of 2021-22. The next line down, I put in $50,000. Again, that was just put in there as a line item. That whole line item may be wiped out because with them only looking for 20 and the work being done before July 1st, we put in 35,000 last year for parking lot upgrades, and I think that was approved. So that should still be there. So like the next article down could be X'd right out. The next article is the town will appropriate the sum of $6,000 to replace 3 rescue boards. We put off on that last year. Again, that could be put off again if we need to. The last article we put in, town appropriate the sum of $25,000 for replacement of changing rooms, repairs to the gate shack, and repairs to the Goose Wing lifeguard shack. Again, this is not an approved budget. This is just stuff out there for you guys to approve. The next page over is the budget income overview. I'm basically looking at 145,000 with tickets, 0 coming in from campers, 10,000 weekly passes, 70,000 season passes. I've got a line in there for 15,000 for town stickers, fire permits 1,500, other lifeguard courses, etc., like that 1,500. Basically, it comes in with an income of 243,000. These figures are all based on us still being under COVID protocols for next year.
So Jimmy, that's what I was going to ask you. You didn't include on this what the actual was for the previous fiscal year.
Okay.
It's usually nice to have that so that you can see
Okay,
you know,
if you have the last sheets that I gave you with the finances,
Yeah.
that shows you where we were at that point in time. Okay, so basically we're looking at nuts. I don't have it in front of me. I believe last year we took in about 239,000. I think is somewhere around there. Unfortunately, I don't have the book with me, so I can't look it up here.
okay, so in other words, this is based on a conservative estimate of revenue based on this past year and not on normal years, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if this was, to give you an example, the budget that we put in for last year that we did in 2019, we had an income amount of $290,000. This is going to be, I think we did about 50,000 less than that last year, which was a real shock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did better than we thought we would. And the people, even though were the restrictions and they knew that, they still bought the passes.
Yep.
So,
And I mean, especially like season passes, we sold a ridiculous amount of season passes.
yeah,
Again, like I said, I think the season pass sales were helped out by the access to the beach, the early access to the beach. So, all right, next page on this is the capital fund budget, which basically hasn't changed from what we put in last year. It has a line item for the replacement of the Gator, 2024, the rescue boat replacement 2040, the motor for the rescue boat 2030, and then contributions to the catastrophe fund, which I don't know whether have been done or not. So, but this is something that's gone to Tony. Operating budget. Basically, we're looking at maintenance and repair. We're going to go with the same 4,000 as last year. Fuel for vehicles 700. Grounds upkeep, and that again is we've got to work a little bit on what the actual things are. That's going to be the hardware runs, you know, that sort of stuff, the maintenance, that sort of maintenance. Salaries 159,700. Department expense, which again is maintenance items and stuff like that, 9,800.
excuse me, Jimmy, that salary number includes the security, correct?
Includes the security, yes.
Okay,
The phone, to give you an example, we had budgeted in 2021 $1,400 for the phone. We spent, we're going to only budget $600 this year because we're dealing with AT&T is $47 a month, so it's working out well. I did leave a beach parking lot repair line in there just in case there are any other issues that come up with a CRMC permit that may not be covered for $15,000. Equipment 4,500. Office expenses 3,000. Water test 1,600. So we basically have an operating cost there of 203,900. We're looking at payroll taxes of about another 20,000. So we got about a $24,692.94 for estimated operating costs for next year. And then the next page is a salary breakdown. Again, we kept things basically the same as we did for the COVID. Manager 30,000, lifeguards 85, gate staff 14,000, junior guards 11,500, beach commission secretary 1,200, night security 18,000. So that's where we get our $159,700. All right. So those are all in the packets that I sent out to you and stuff like that, and will give us plenty of good stuff to talk about on February 16th.
February 16th.
Yeah. All right, that's all I've got.
I have a
All
question.
right.
Joe, I have a question on the agenda. Did we put on this agenda to discuss whether we were going to record the 10-year permit that CRMC just issued to us? We at the last meeting, we acknowledged that we received.
It's not on the agenda specifically. I was just looking to see if there's anything that could come under, but I don't think so.
All right, so I'd like to have that put on next meeting's agenda.
Okay.
I think this commission should.
You got that, Cindy?
The permit that CRMC issued does not have a requirement to record. That is a complete unusual. It's an odd thing. It's not at all normal in my experience with CRMC permits. So that just causes me to give it a little more attention. So I'd like that on the agenda for the commission to discuss next time if we should take it upon ourselves to record the 10-year permit.
All right, Cindy, did you get that?
I did.
To include on the agenda? Okay, and also Cindy and Carol, you're gonna work together to get those minute items that Larry needs, right, Cindy?
Yes.
Yep. Cindy is I don't know if you guys can hear her on my phone, but yeah. All right. And then Cindy, if you could get out the proposed agenda for next meeting ahead of time to everybody so that we can see if anybody wants to add anything.
Yes.
All right.
So
And,
on the February 16th agenda, are we going to put the approval of Jimmy's operating and budget?
Yes.
You'll have to, because that needs to be submitted by March 1st.
Oh, yeah.
okay, so that timing works out well then. All right, and if anybody else has anything to add to the agenda, they can contact Cindy. And as she said, she's going to get the draft of it out to us ahead of time so that in case we need to add anything, we can do that in time.
Will we be continuing the camper discussion at the next meeting? Or is that part of Jimmy's, the
That's
I
umbrella?
said that
Operating.
all of that would be next meeting, you know,
Yep.
That was
things to
under
think
that.
about, and talk about consistency
I
and,
think we carry that all forward to the next meeting, Jimmy's proposed budget, as well as the operational guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think if that's it, we can entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:51 PM.
So I have a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's do it this way. Anybody opposed?
No.
Unanimous then.
All right.
have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.